Welcome to Culture Before Content. Culture Before Content, from Music for All and presented by Yamaha. And now, here's your host, David Duarte.
Hey, welcome to the show. I'm David Duarte, your host for Culture Before Content. Whether watching live, listening, or enjoying a replay, I am thrilled you are here. At Music for All and within the Culture Before Content community, our mission is to create, provide, and expand positively life-changing experiences through music. And none of this happens without support, and we're incredibly grateful to Yamaha, our national presenting sponsor, for helping us bring this mission to life. Well, again, we're glad you're here with us. If you're watching live, this is the perfect time to get involved. Feel free to leave a comment. We'd love for you to join the conversation, drop a hello, say hi, or even just put in something that you're thinking at the time. It's great. And if we get a chance, we can even put it on the show. Well, if you enjoy audio, you can also listen later, as audio-only versions are available on Mondays on platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and others. For the video broadcast, including this one, you can always return to watch the full episodes anytime on Music for All's YouTube or Facebook page under the video section. Or you can visit musicforall.org/podcasts for everything related to Culture Before Content. It's great. All right. Well, let's talk about last week. Last week, we met Adam Uhorter, a high school band director who shared insights on building a thriving band program based on strong relationships and intentional leadership. He emphasized the value of a student-led environment where belonging and hard work are central, highlighting the importance of kindness and open communication among students, parents, and teachers. He encouraged positive reinforcement alongside critique to boost morale and growth. His advice to new directors is be patient. Lasting culture develops through time and consistency. Isn't that the truth? I'm 35 years in. I'm going to keep learning. All right. Well, let's get on to this week's guest. I'm very excited. Today on the show, I'm thrilled to have Dr. Frederick Lowe with us. He's a remarkable leader in music education, making a significant impact in high school, college, and even community ensembles. As the director of music program at Loyola University of Chicago, he directs various ensembles, teaching aspiring educators, and guides one of the country's longest-running community bands. Whether in the band room, concert hall, or classroom, he approaches his work with purpose and a genuine passion for excellence. I can't wait to dive into his inspiring journey as an educator and culture leader. Please join me in welcoming to the show, Dr. Frederick Lowe.
Thank you, David. Thanks so much. And please call me Rick.
I will do so, but I always like to say people get their titles first before I gotta have my permission to shorten a title, especially when you get that doctorate. I'm a little envious of the doctorate. We were talking to my audience. We were talking before. We both followed a similar path. We both did not start out as music education majors.
That's right.
And so I don't know how many years of undergrad you got, but I got the full 7. How many did you get?
It's true. Who knew? We did the same thing. I was doing English. I started in taking these honors classes in English literature and trying to find my way, whether I was gonna. There was a time I thought I was going to go into journalism and be an editor. There was a time I was thinking about maybe being a minister.
Wow.
Believe it or not. And the one part of my college career that was so profoundly affecting was my time in the marching band at Michigan. And the musicians and leaders I met there really led me toward jumping over to music full time. And it's hard to switch, as you know, once you've been at it that long.
So this is funny because this is why I love doing this show. First off, I get to meet great people like you. And so this story is kind of connected because the only reason I became a music educator was because of the marching band. And what happened to me was it was pep band. Because I fell so in love with pep band that I was doing marching band every year as a business major. It led me to music education because I got so involved in the music that over time, after 4 years, I ended up wanting to teach music because I started to feel that the music was what my calling was and not the business side. But it's funny that we had those same stories, because in thinking about culture, I don't know what it took for you to embrace the culture of becoming a teacher, because I think that maybe it's a good place to start is,
Sure.
the embracement of accepting yourself as a teacher and how that started. Because, I think with that weird journey that we both took, I think, oh my gosh, what makes me a teacher? And I think it was finally me wanting to become a teacher versus starting out with the expectation of becoming a teacher.
Right. Yeah. I had never really considered going into teaching. I had been in a lot of leadership positions, and so I worked with people, and I found that I was normally a collaborative leader. Actually, in college, toward the end of college, I spent about a week at this something called the Leadership Institute, and you kind of learn about yourself. And I definitely found the collaborative side of leadership, which as a conductor can be challenging sometimes because I'm not the most, always the most, this is the way, my idea must do this. But, it took a while for me. My grandmother was a school teacher, and neither of my parents were teachers, none of my siblings, but I just found that wanting to share what I had learned from such great teachers was, I think, what drew me to the profession.
Yeah, let's talk about those fantastic teachers, because I think that's part of what draws us in. And we haven't even talked about, let's talk about your experience, which we're going to get to. But think about all the people in your past and those fantastic teachers. What kind of influence have they had on who you are to build your culture as a teacher? Because that's what I want to get into with you, is the culture of what's made you. Because I feel like I was the same way. It took me, I would say, a good 15 years as a teacher before I felt like I was in a place where I finally felt confident to know what I know, and even more important, to know what I don't know. Because I think that skipped me at the beginning, thinking everything. But as I get older, I feel like I know less and less, but that's what's making my experience better and better, because I can go to my strengths and I can work on my weaknesses and I can use that into my pedagogy.
Your comment that you feel like you know less and less, I am finding this both at Loyola, where I teach now, and with the community band, the Palatine concert band. I've been at these places long enough that I'll do a big work, a big piece, a masterwork, and then I'll bring it back 5, 8, 10 years later, and I'll often think to myself, how did this piece get so much harder? And to me, what that means is I think I was just so ignorant, the first time through it. I was just like, oh, this seems pretty good. Let's go through it like this. And now, when the benefit of years of experience, you start to go through something, you're like, oh, the complexity, all of the nuance, all the details, and it keeps it from ever being boring, right? But in terms of my journey with regard to teachers, I've been so fortunate. I feel like at every level to have had some wonderful and wonderfully influential teachers. I mean, my elementary school music teacher, Mrs. Monticello, I remember getting up in front of like a second grade class and singing something with my little, tiny high voice. And I remember her playing this film strip. Remember film strips? Of
Yep.
This Halloween film strip of all these skeletons emerging from the ground and everything to the tune of Saint-Saëns' Danse Macabre.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, what a powerful influence she had on me. Again, never intending to be a teacher or necessarily go into music, but just loving that time. And my high school band director, fellow named Robert Ambrose, taught in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan from I think 86 until around 2015. Just one of the most important things I took from him, first his sense of humor, not taking himself too seriously, and I definitely don't take myself too seriously, but having a real commitment to the music and what's important about that. And in looking back, what he did that I really loved and still I try to do now is choose the best music I can of the highest artistic value, even if it's probably outside the reach of the ensemble I'm with. And the truth is, nowadays the ensembles I'm doing and when I was teaching high school, competition was not a huge part of the experiences I've had. And the students I teach now at Loyola primarily are not music majors. They're there because they love playing and they're studying neuroscience or organic chemistry or poli-sci or whatever, and they just want to keep playing. So I think what's the best music? Because it's not that we don't spend time shedding rhythms and working on intonation, but to me the experience of great music and thinking about why and how a piece is great is the most important thing.
Yeah. And so I was thinking, you've done all levels. You've worked with high school, you're teaching college, you're doing the community band. And, from the cultural perspective, or maybe even a cultural similarity, what is the one thing you notice that's the same between all working with all those different types of groups?
I think respect for the students at every level, including, and I also did a little bit while I was teaching high school. I taught middle school lessons and some of that as well. Everyone's in a different place, but realizing that everyone's going through different things, and you might see someone who's got a bit of a 1,000-yard stare, or seems not as involved as they want to be, or can't quite achieve what you maybe think or know they can achieve one day. But everyone's got a lot of things going on in their lives, and I really try to honor where everyone's coming from and be patient. I'm patient with the determination, right? We can all have our moments where we're impatient with, someone's like not, if someone were goofing off or whatever, that's one thing, but having a high degree of patience for the attempt, the journey, I think for me is really important. And that goes for all, like you said, all levels. I've worked with middle school kids, high school, different levels in the high school. When I was teaching at Lake Zurich High School, primarily when I started there with Josh Thompson, he was the director. I was the first assistant director they had. Beth Peterson had been the director before Josh. And there were two bands the first year or two that I was there. And then we had three bands. We had sort of a first, freshman band, right? And a middle band and a top band. And my primary teaching for most of the time I was there was splitting time with the freshmen and then doing the middle group. And again, the middle group, some of them are juniors and seniors who haven't quote unquote made it to the top, whatever, but they're still there. They want to be there. And so it's really important to honor that and find, again, the best music that will work for them.
Speaking of year 15, it's funny you say that because, I've had the three concert bands back when I taught in Arizona. I always had the three concert bands. I have two right now. And so right now I have the freshman band. And until, this is the last year where I was having anybody that's if you're not a ninth grader, then you're in the wind ensemble. But now I'm finally getting to the point where the program's growing that now not every kid's going to get to go into wind ensemble anymore, partly through, only so many people can fit in the room and stuff. But when you're talking about the third band, and this is where I want to get to the culture side of it, I had the culture side moment shift from when a student kind of brought it up to me about, the top kids were in the wind ensemble, the audition kids, the freshman kids either would audition into the wind ensemble or they would be in the middle band. And it kind of was that jarring awakeness of like, everybody's important. And that teaching that middle band actually is a thriving community. Because I think I came, speaking about, just past experience and what I understood when I was young was that, well, that, your top group is the one that's going to score well. And the one, and so then, an excellent rating is what you're going to get. And then that was kind of the day when a student said that, it just kind of sparked me to realize that's not true. And then I started analyzing bands across America that were getting superior ratings with top bands, middle bands, lower bands, and then trying to find some of those. And this is why I think why we're here today. So I'm trying to find what's that similarity. And if at any school, any band, middle band can get those types of ratings, it's not about the rating. It's about what are they doing to be successful. And so this is my question. When I walk into Rick Lowe's bands, what does Rick Lowe's success look like?
I think throwing yourself into the experience. When I'm in rehearsals, I think you get all of me. And sometimes I'm sure my students and the people in the wonderful musicians in the Palatine concert band will tell you sometimes that's a lot, and sometimes it varies, but I think, again, being honest with who you are, and sharing that with the ensemble members is so important. I a couple examples. I mean, one thing this past year with the wind ensemble at Loyola, my mother passed away on New Year's Day.
Sorry.
And thank you. She was obviously profound influence in my life, was a wonderful musician. She was a pianist. She accompanied some of the school choirs and whatnot when I was a kid. But I decided, I had already been thinking about it. And then once this happened, I decided to program a piece for our final concert. We have 2 concerts at Loyola. Our final concert, David Mislanka's Give Us This Day. And, Mislanka was not a overtly Christian person particularly, but he was a very spiritual person. He definitely drew upon Christian themes and influences, Bach and Give Us This Day, obviously, Lord's Prayer. And in doing that music, I found that in the early rehearsals, I was having really intense moments, particularly in the first movement of conducting rehearsals with the piece, of overcoming emotion, like tearing up, having to stop. And, some of it you want to hold back. You don't want to completely break down in a rehearsal. But I also felt like it was very important for me to share that with the students, and to share how much my mother's influence on me meant, and how that you can bring that energy and that passion to music. So, I think there are different parts of rehearsal. Coming back to, what a rehearsal like me or with me might mean. I know my band director at the University of Michigan while I was there I'm sure most or many people who would watch this would know his name. H. Robert Reynolds was a tremendous musician. He used to talk about sort of the white heat moment of rehearsals. There were parts of rehearsals where you could really just focus in, and you were kind of in, what kind of like the flow state Csikszentmihalyi would talk about, right? And I think we have all of that, but I think it's finding the balance of when to have fun, when to dive in, when to be quiet, when to get the students or the ensemble members involved. All of that is part of the story. And one of my favorite things, and upon reflection, my Loyola people who know about Ignatian pedagogy and know all about how important that is for reflecting, reflecting upon my rehearsals, I need to work more on bringing the students in the moment, into what's going on in rehearsal, because that's always the best and the most. I think that focuses everyone in a really interesting and profound way. When you ask, say, can a few of you go sit in the house and listen, or what are we hearing here? What way can we try it? And trying different things. I love that. And even, I have no competitions or anything like that looming, but I have concert dates, and sometimes I get, we got to get everything ready for April 16th. But, when I step back and allow the process of kind of exploring the music to happen, I mean, I think that's the best part. I think those are the parts I enjoyed the most. The reason why I became a band director in the first place.
Well, it's obvious you have a nice relationship with your students, because while we were talking, I know a couple of your students chimed in. There's Naomi and Lauren. Dr. Lowe makes rehearsals so enjoyable. You know how nice that is to hear, because that's like, what we're always trying to, like I said, talk about culture, just the culture of even going to rehearsal, and then Lauren was like, Dr. Lowe's the best. And so it goes back to like, student centered. So, and you even said that in your conversation, because that's my belief is, and that's kind of where Culture Before Content started. I was asked to write the article on, what I believe in. And my belief is, if the students do all the work, it's not that I'm not doing it. It's that it goes so much better. It's like that whole thing. If it's your idea, it's one thing, but if it's my idea, it's another. And so I was thinking to myself, keeping that student-centered focus, how do you, what are some things that you do? I mean, engaging conversation. Is there other things that you do that are student-centered? And I shouldn't say student-centered. You're teaching, the Palatine community band. I'm sure there's, the interaction with adults is always awesome. Like, if you've ever get a chance, I always tell people out there, if you ever get a chance to work with an adult band, do so. It is a whole different experience than teaching high school or teaching college. And the interaction is completely different, but it's people-centered. It's, why do we all, why do we still have music in our lives to this day? It's because we believe in the power that music gives us, and we want to just give it back. So how do you keep some of that energy, and how do you keep it student-centered or people-centered?
I mean, again, I think it's listening and trying to be prepared enough and open-minded enough to kind of see where things take you in rehearsal and try different things. I mean, in terms of little techniques, things that I like to do, in rehearsal, again, which almost always fixes problems, is I say, I'm going to stop conducting. Why don't you all play a little bit? And immediately, right, that heightens everyone's response to what's going on around them. I mean, as conductors, we're often, so guilty of this, but so often we become like, I'm fixing problems, or I'm like, okay, what do I have to get to? What do we have to get better at today? Or what do we have to correct? Whereas I think a lot of times when we can sort of step back and think about how we can let everyone participate in their best way, I think those are the great moments. Encouraging listening and directing students. We're the ones with the score, so the students just have a part, helping the students, directing the students where to listen, and how to listen, and who to listen to. I talk about this a lot with certain kind of rhythmic, section, backbeats, whatever. If you're trying to listen for when to play, you're going to be late. So you need to know, right? Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a simple thing, but you have to realize that we always sing, oh, you need to listen. But okay, but what does that mean? Like, who am I listening to? What instrument is providing the metronome here? What can I be doing in terms of my own internal pulse and subdivision to make things work? And rehearsal is hard. You point these things out, and the students and the Palatine, concert band, community band members, they can always fix it, because oftentimes it's just a matter of A, knowing, and then B, really putting forth the energy to concentrate on it. And it takes a lot. At Loyola, the students in the wind ensemble I conduct are probably about, it varies, but maybe 70%, 75% non-majors. So they're coming from their organic chemistry class or their nursing practicum or their, whatever, some kind of internship in sociology, who knows? All of these different things that are tugging at them and pulling at them. And I see their faces and I feel the energy, and I wish I had time to just sort of sit with each one and chat and find out what's going on. And I try to find ways to pull it all together. And sometimes that means I'm going to go a certain way. And sometimes it means maybe I'm going to lay back a little bit and have a different kind of energy. With the community band, it's so interesting. I mean, when I started with that group, and still a few left to this day, but I used to think to myself and sometimes say, there are many members of this group who have been playing in the band longer than I've been alive, right? And when you step into a situation like that, the institutional memory of an ensemble is profound. It's palpable, particularly when you're playing those summer American works for the outdoor concerts and whatnot. I mean, they've played Stars and Stripes or America the Beautiful so many times that this is the way we've been doing it the last 13 years. So it's really interesting to go about it that way, and to know that these people, I mean, you have, stay-at-home parents, you have baristas, you have doctors, you have lawyers, you have many, probably a third of the group are music educators. It's just a whole vast, and I think, my goodness, these people are taking 2 hours out of every Tuesday night to be here. I better bring something to the table, right? And
Right.
it's an opportunity. It's a lot of responsibility, but I try to look at it, not put that pressure on myself, try to look at it as an opportunity to do some great things.
Yeah, it's funny because I was doing community band. I would say 85 was the first year I started the Glendale Community Band, which still in existence to today, in Glendale, Arizona. And by the way, concerts in the summer in Arizona, super fun. Yeah, it's as brutal as it sounds. By the way, it's brutal as it sounds. It was every week, and it was rehearsal Tuesday, concert. I can't remember what I was saying. I can't even remember that. It was wild. And then I was in the Tempe Winds for 23 years, which was great. That was indoors.
Right.
But I was thinking to myself, because you said it, you're 75% of your students are not music majors. And I think sometimes we high school band directors get a little biased that if you're teaching college, you have all these music majors in front of you that are taking private lessons every day, and you can do whatever you want. But it got me thinking about, you said it, the culture and the reason why these people are playing music might be part of it, that intrinsic value that we feel as musicians, why you have people that have been playing longer than we've been alive in your community band, why are we an organic chemistry, that's really hard, by the way, organic chemistry member, an organic major, I don't know, I said member, organic chemistry major playing an ensemble, in a wind ensemble. Why do you think people are still playing? We know what the answer is. It's because music is an internal part of who we are, and we want to share this. And it brings back, what are those things that we like? We love emotion. We love feeling. And you said it, when music makes you cry, when music makes you feel, or like, I even do it to my kids. Like I will get chills at times, and I'll tell the kids when I get chills. Also tell them the other time stuff when it's not chills. But how do we create these identities in our group, and how much of your personality goes into what you do? Because I'm sure you have as I say, it's kind of like the masking. How do you approach yourself as a high school, an honor band or high school? How do you approach as the college? How do you approach it as the adult? Because I think that's where the culture lies. How do you bring yourself to your ensemble? What are those things that you think make a difference?
The older I get, or the more experience I accrue over the years, I think the more and more, in many ways, I'm the same guy, whether it would be a middle school group or the the grown up group, the community band, because and people, you talk about authenticity or whatnot, and I think it's true. I think it gets to being honest and inhabiting yourself and being okay with that. And again, that's the thing that takes a while. Coming out of college and teaching high school and middle school students, high school students particularly, that's pretty scary. They're not that much younger than you, a lot of them, and having the kind of the wherewithal and the commitment to be who you are and to kind of attack the music the way that you need to is a challenge. I think a different challenge for me after graduate school was taking years. I mean, still to this day, but at least a decade, I feel like, of just digesting what I had experienced and learned and trying to let all of that come out and just be me. Because so often you're trying in graduate school, and I mean, in all school, really, you're trying to be right. You're trying to do it right. You're trying to look right. And you're trying to make, and do the right thing. And a lot of times, the things that you pick up are the little quirks or bad habits of the teachers that you watch all the time. But to get the really great things that those mentors do, you can't copy that. You have to find that within yourself and find how that can come out.
There is a comment on the screen that I saw it pop up when I was going to be like, hey, we're going to talk about this one because this is the perfect. Thank you, Catherine. This is a fantastic comment. So let's start with this one. And so to our listeners, by the way, we have listeners that, not everyone watches on video, so they can't magically see it on the earpiece. College can be so individualistic and competitive. That's a hard word. Students groan when there's group work because professors often don't allow students to develop strong, trusting relationships in class. But band, and there's two things in there, the group work, it's inherently social and you have to trust. And I think that's what students are hungry for. Sorry, I accidentally paraphrased for a second, but I think for me, what I'm trying to say, and thank you, Catherine, what a great thing. Being individualistic is who we are and letting students be individuals. Cause I always say this. I think I used to be a director speak only guy, and now I'm almost to a fault the opposite. I'm going to use my yesterday as example. Yesterday, you have to feel sorry for me for a second. Listeners, you have to feel sorry. Yesterday was, and it's not the first comment, it's the second one that comes out. The first comment is, yesterday was the end of the musical, and I had the matinee and I had the evening performance. It was Wizard of Oz. It was so good. And shout out to Marcus Bennett, the tech of that thing. Holy cow, the wizard was great. Anyway, here comes the second part. Before that, and I had about 10 kids from my program doing the pit orchestra. We had a pet band event at 8 a.m. till 11. And so we had to put the pet band out there. But here's what I did. Nothing. I put the set list together. I said, here's the top 10 tunes I want you to do first, because we're doing Disney coming up, so then we're going to perform there. But what it was is that belief that this is what I talk about, student-led organizations are the ones that run that thing. So at some point, this is like my success failure thing. At some point, you have to let the students run it, and if there's something that needs to get fixed, fix it. And so I was proud papa moment because the band sounded great. There was good sound. They were controlling volume. And sometimes I heard a little too much tuba here and there. Too much tuba. What a problem. But I think that's that social animal, that individualist animal. But I still think, letting people feel, and whether they feel they're in charge, feel they're contributing, feel emotionally connected to the music, it is what I think we crave as musicians. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, as Catherine noted anthropologist at Loyola University, Dr. Catherine Nichols, who has also happened to be married to me, so I'm very lucky in that way.
So thank you, ringers. We appreciate the ringers.
It wasn't a plant. I didn't even know she was going to watch, so thank you for that. The relationships and the trust. One thing that I was able to do for my first 10 years at Loyola that I don't do anymore was I directed the pep band, the Band of Wolves, at Loyola University, who played for the men's and women's teams. And I think back on some of the leadership and I honestly don't know how we would have been able to do what we did, particularly the year we ended up going on that run and going to the Final Four, and Sister Jean was everywhere, and it was such a great time. And I relied and leaned on the student leaders so much, and they always delivered, because I said, it's, I heard my high school band director, again, Bob Ambrose, back in Michigan, used to say that. He said, it's your band. And it really is. I mean, the conductors, we wave our arms and point and gesture and grimace, but we don't make sound. And the more that you can let go of that and let those relationships develop. I mean, again, yeah, why am I here? We both talked about this. I mean, the friendships and the experience I had in college, particularly in marching band, were so affecting and so profound that I decided, well, I guess I have to do this for the rest of my life, because it's so powerful. And the lessons you learn and those intense emotions all over, whether it's the absolute insanity of Dante's shot going in to win the game, the first game of the tournament, or whether it's us after we lose. And this, you're never going to believe this. When we went to the Final Four in 2018, Loyola played in the first game my alma mater, Michigan. And all the students and the interview people were asking, well, whose side are you going to be on? Oh, who are you going to be rooting for? Oh, who really? I was like, oh, Loyola. It's no question. I love Michigan with all my heart. I lived and died there, but I am at Loyola now, and these people are what matter to me. And I had never had more hunger and intensity for us to be our best band selves and to be cheering like crazy and doing all of that, because of how much, you see it in the faces of the students and all the time that they've spent, waking up early to study on these trips and staying up late and trying to manage all the things that they're managing. I mean, it's those relationships, you remember them. They stay with you the rest of your life. And I think that's what I'm doing. I think that's what a lot of people in the community band are doing. They're either recreating or creating new versions of those wonderful moments of music making. That's what it's all about, I think.
I was reading on the boards earlier, because I don't know, when I come on to do the show on Sundays, first off, I have breakfast. Breakfast is great over here. But I was reading the boards, and somebody was talking about, and I don't like to specific, but we were talking about how, a lot of us, the trips are what really builds some of those relationships. And I was thinking to myself, it goes back to my first year at my current school. It was right after COVID. I mean, I remember I had an 18-piece pep band, because that was all that fit on the bus to go to the state tournament.
Sure.
But what it did was that was the event that put the band that I'm currently teaching at back together. And I can trace it back exactly. Had that event not happened, it would probably be a different course of where I'm at today. But had those 18 students not done that travel, I think I would be in a very different place right now. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it's what I'm thinking. I wrote down in my notes as we're talking, relationships and trust. I think relationships are the easy part. It's the trust that I think is hard. And how do you, what do you say to a teacher out there? How do you build trust with your students? What's some advice you have for that?
I mean,
that's a hard one. I know
it is a hard one. Yeah. You're not lobbing out the softballs, but that's good. I mean, these are important questions. And I think, again, I'm not to repeat myself, but I think you just have to go back to being honest, and respectful of where the students are coming from, and knowing that, and I think sometimes you just have to try things. I mean, you have to say, look, I'm going to put you in charge. And sometimes it doesn't work. Right? Right? I mean,
don't you think, though, that this is because I keep saying to this, because I think sometimes we view failure as a bad thing. I mean, sometimes it is, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying, as a teacher, as a student, as anything, we have to, like, I call it spaghetti teaching. I'm going to throw it at the wall. Sometimes it sticks, sometimes it falls off. Don't eat it after it falls on the ground, kids. It's not safe. But that's what I'm trying to say, though, is we learn from experience. And so I have a new game I want to play here. You ready for the new game?
Okay.
Let's play. Since we both have the similar experience, I'm curious about some of these questions. So the game is where I started and where I'm at now. So let's start with, like, what has changed with you as if when you first started, what were you like when you first started? What are you like now? And what would you tell yourself? Really, it comes down to, what would you tell yourself now, going back, if you could talk to your first year version of you?
I mean, everyone has their major sort of weaknesses or challenges as a person, as a teacher, as a student. I think one of mine is perfectionism, and also that imposter syndrome. Right? Oh yeah. Particularly, and I think because you and I had that same experience, particularly because I started in college and then switched into music at a particularly high level competitive school. I think
Michigan's all right.
I think, it was hard, and you're older than everyone, and most of them are sort of better or are in chairs higher than you to start. And it's there are plenty of days where you think, oh, what have I gotten myself into? And I think what I would say is, as my dear spouse has told me many times, comparison is the thief of joy. If you are just trying to, say, well, this person's doing that and they're so good at this and blah, 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 you can't, it blocks you from getting to be yourself. And I mean, there's a picture on the screen right now of me with two large turkey legs in my mouth. This was when I was a high school teacher. That's Russ Vinnick, the orchestra director, on my left, and Josh Thompson on my right, the head band director. And I mean, for me, being goofy and being just that kind of do the crazy thing is where I would like to say, tell that young band director just starting out, you don't have to be so serious. You don't have to wear a shirt and tie to school every day. You don't have to, you can take a breath and you can be yourself, and let the music and all of it come to you a little bit more. Still struggle with it all the time. I still struggle with feeling like I need to work more, the shoulds, right? I need to study this more. I need to be more prepared on this. And, again, speaking as an experience, I see Mallory Thompson on the screen right now in a photo. One of her messages to us was, sometimes you have to take a B. In life, in school, in everything, you have to, she's like, it's not that hard to get a B in some things. And what you need to do is think about, what's the most important thing for you globally right now, in your family, in your health, in your work, in your musical life, and how can you devote your best energy and that small amount of time you have every day to that, where you do A work on that. And then, you can do B work on, maybe you need to do B work on a class, or maybe you need to do B work on, washing the dishes or keeping the house clean or things like that. Maybe it's not going to be perfect, but maybe, that allows you to give your very best to the things that will feed you and make you more able to share those lessons and those ideas with the students.
And so I'm thinking about like moments in teaching that have shaped us for a lifetime. Are there any, any specific moments? Because I know I can identify things down to moments that, at the time it just happens, but there are moments that just shifted me as an educator like crazy. Like, I always say there's that girl who spoke to me. I can remember specific moments that created a whole difference, because you talked about perfectionist, imposter syndrome. I can't even say the word imposter syndrome, and perfectionistic tendencies are going to be things that drive you wild. But sometimes it has to come down to, there are things that help me shift to create those moments in a better way. Like I said, I always refer to Hart High School in California, the chord that changed my life, an outdoor chord that rang for like forever, that just made me go, you can sound like that outside. What is going on? Because what it does is it creates curiosity. So are there any impactful moments that you can think of that just shifted you as an educator?
Sure. I think, well, it's the influence, again, going back to those great teachers that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Bob Ambrose invited me back to conduct on the last concert at the high school I attended. They were closing the building and renewing it, so the theater was going to be demolished, and he invited me back to conduct on that last concert. And when he announced me, he said, Rick has always been a band guy or a band director. It just took him a while to figure it out. And that to me was so profound, and again brought a lot of emotion to my heart, because he saw something that it took me just years and years and years to find and discover and accept. And so that was sort of a moment of reflection that sticks out to me. Moments that I remember rehearsal in marching band with Gary Lewis, where he was doing singing some kind of rhythm and conducting something with the tubas. And I just thought, wow, how is he doing that? How can I literally feel like the music is emanating from him? It's just like, I just need to kind of get on board with what he is showing and how he's leading us. And I remember when I was thinking about switching to music, I went to his office and I said, I'm thinking about switching over to music. And I said, can you tell me about what your experience was? And he said, well, when I was in high school, I wanted to be a television weatherman. And he said, and then he got involved in music. And then he said, and then I wanted to be the best high school band director in the country. And then he just talked about, and now he's the director of orchestras in Colorado, and his career has moved all over. But just hearing how it's okay to not know exactly what you're going to be doing, and to shift your ideals and all of that. Those are I think the things that stood out to me. I listening to a time where I was listening to the symphony band at Michigan play Lincoln Tripozzi, things like that for the first time. I was like, oh my, I didn't know band could do this. Things like that, of course, too. But yeah, I mean, just so many great teachers. That's really the main experiences.
Well, let's reverse course here for a second, because
Sure.
we let's talk about, you talk about influencing teachers. One of my favorite things is student teachers, young teachers, and both of us, who knows, maybe we're talking to somebody who's out there that might be thinking about switching to music. But what advice do you have as Rick for a young teacher, either just starting out, because it is the end almost the end of the year for many of us. Some people are getting
Right.
out this week. Some people might already be, I still have a month to go, just saying. But, what advice do you have out there? If somebody's starting out, they're planning a new year, they're taking it over to school. What's in Rick's mind? How does a teacher start their next year, according to Rick Lowe?
I mean, if for a teacher, I mean, if you're going into I would pick a few pieces, pick a few things that are so important to you musically that you feel like where you can be most yourself and where you could really attack. And then maybe pick just one or two things that are just totally new to you so that you can kind of take that journey along with the students. It's tough, those situations. If you're following a legend, it's one thing. If you're following someone who wasn't successful, it's a different thing. There's different kinds of, considerations wherever you are, but also try as soon as you can to meet the teachers and the student leaders and talk to them and listen to them and find out what are your concerns? What are you thinking about? What did you appreciate about band, or what have you appreciated about band in the last number of years you've been at school, and what do you think could be could bring the music making or the camaraderie or whatever to the next level? Listening to the students, and boy, I say these things and I know I need to take my own advice. Always. It's so easy when you're busy with a million things going on to just go on autopilot. And the resource of listening to the students and connecting with them really should always be at the root of it. So talk to the students.
I have an inkling you're never on autopilot. I have an inkling you're a thinker. You're always trying to improve the moment. You're always trying to make that next, I could have done this, I should have done that. And it's kind of like these podcasts. I'll get off of these things and I listen to them, by the way. And then I find oh man, here's what I should have said. But in keeping relationship with everybody, it's I kind of have a nice little view here. Like I get to talk to people, I get experience, and I have tried like every week I will try something new out that I get out of these podcasts. And the one thing I'm listening today is how much of a reflection artist you are. I don't know, in my observation, just the amount of reflection, because I think, and my favorite phrase, learning takes place in reflection. And I think that's what makes you so powerful is you reflect on every decision, whether it was this piece, that note, this kid, that, adult. And so, my compliments to you is, you can't teach personality, but you can kind of like, guide it, so to speak. And and all of us, what do we want? Success. And when do we want? I'm kidding. We want it always. But here's the scary part. We've been going at this thing for about almost 54 minutes, and I have probably not even started what I really want to. We haven't even gotten to the band dirtiness of life, because it really is that thing. But and just thinking of culture, and I always tell my guests this, what is it? What does culture mean to you? What does, what's specific about culture? Because there's a reason you're here, because you're just an amazing teacher. It's obvious first off, thank your wife for that was the most amazing question. Thank you, by the way. And your students are here because it's validation. And for our listeners out there, I always encourage people to learn from everybody else, because that's my secret to success. I have no original thought. I just take what I learned from everyone and try to make it work for myself. So in terms of final thoughts, what does culture mean to Rick Lowe?
Yeah. Respect for the people in front of you. Whether that is, I wear a lot of hats in my professional life, and whether it's a student who I don't know very well, who's coming in for some advising questions, or whether it's a section leader of the wind ensemble, or whether it's a conducting student in a lesson, or whether it's the board of the community band, just sitting back and listening and having the wherewithal to respect and hear what everyone's trying to say and where they're coming from, and trying to bring it together. I mean, for me, as I said, ultimately, I like to collaborate. I love the journey, and I think that's why so many of us in music are in ensembles. The process is great. And all of the work occurs, the process, the culture of work that you build up in rehearsal is about, how can we focus? What can we listen for? How can we use our imaginations to bring these black lines and dots to life, so that in the performance, we just get to have fun and we just get to make this magical moment. So for me, the culture comes through respect, through listening, through patience, and as you noted, and your words have been very generous and kind. Thank you so much, David. But again, it's not for me. It's this Ignatian pedagogy, reflecting on what we learn and thinking back and thinking about what can come from any kind of experience. That's what's so important to me. And that's how I carry culture from any group to the next.
Well, I thank you for all of it, because like I said, by the way, thanks to Naomi for this last comment, and I like the part. And so I'll read it. Something that always means a lot to me is that Dr. Lowe will find us after a performance to compliment and speak to us one-on-one. Thank you for creating such a great environment in music. And that goes to connection. I mean, I always think, communication, reflection, there's all these similar things that are happening in this show. And the unique thing is everyone does it different. And I am so thankful that you are on the show today. And I can band nerd out forever. I still want another show that's like the content after culture, because I have like a billion questions, about programming. Anyway, we do have a couple of socials that I want to share with our audience and our listeners.
Sure.
You've got your Instagram, which is at LUC, Loyola University Chicago. I figured that out all on my own. LUC Music Program, at LUC Music Program, and at Palatine Concert Band. And so Palatine, I figure you all can spell concert band. If you're a band person, you can't spell concert band, throw it in the comments. We'll help you spell. Anyway,
yes.
But thank you so much for being on the show today. What a fantastic conversation.
Thank you, David. Thanks for the comments. Thanks to Catherine and Lauren and Naomi for all of your comments as well. Naomi is one of those people who is in many ways the heart of the Wind Ensemble over the last few years, and is an absolute treasure to get to work with and conduct in rehearsal and performance.
See, he can't help himself. He is the culture artist. Thank you, Dr. Lowe. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. We invite you to share this exciting podcast on your social media. By doing so, you'll help us spread our message and reach even more amazing teachers who can benefit from listening. And depending on whether you're listening or watching, you can find this on YouTube. You can find it on Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other platforms. Simply go to musicforall.org/podcast. And remember, you can always reach me at david.duarte@me.com. And I would like to thank my exceptional Culture Before Content team, whose contributions have made this possible. They help so much. Additionally, I want to extend my thanks to Music for All and our esteemed national presenting sponsor, Yamaha, for their invaluable support. And thank you for being a part of our culture today. I'm David Duarte, your host, and I look forward to having you join us again next time.